shower steamer units must be protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI. This requirement stems from the inherent risk associated with using electricity in close proximity to water. Shower steamer units function by using electrical energy to heat water, producing steam for aromatherapy or therapeutic purposes. If a malfunction occurs within the unit, such as a short circuit or installation failure, it can create a dangerous electrical shock hazard. A GFCI is a crucial safety device designed to mitigate this risk. It works by continuously monitoring the electrical current flowing through a circuit. The GFCI compares the amount of current flowing into the circuit with the amount of current returning. Under normal operating conditions, these two values should be virtually identical. However, if a fault occurs, such as current leaking to ground through a person touching a live wire or a faulty appliance, the returning current will be less than the outgoing current. This difference, even a very small one, indicates a ground fault. When the GFCI detects a ground fault exceeding a certain threshold, typically around 5 milliamps, it rapidly trips the circuit, interrupting the flow of electricity. This interruption happens very quickly, usually within a fraction of a second, minimizing the duration of the electrical shock and significantly reducing the risk of serious injury or death. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a comprehensive set of standards and guidelines for electrical installations in the United States. It is developed and maintained by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, and is widely adopted by states and local jurisdictions as the basis for their electrical safety regulations. The NEC contains specific requirements for GFCI protection in various locations, including bathrooms. Article 210.8 of the NEC addresses GFCI protection for personnel. It mandates GFCI protection for all 125-volt, 15-amp and 20-amp receptacles installed in bathrooms. This requirement applies to all receptacles, regardless of their intended use, including those that may be used to power shower steamer units. The purpose of this requirement is to provide a high level of electrical safety in bathrooms, where the risk of electric shock is elevated due to the presence of water and conductive surfaces. The NEC definition of a bathroom includes areas with a sink and one or more of the following: a toilet, a tub, or a shower. Because shower steamer units are typically used in bathrooms, the receptacles that power them are subject to the GFCI protection requirements of the NEC. It is important to note that the GFCI protection requirement applies to the receptacle itself, not just the appliance that is plugged into it. This means that if a shower steamer unit is plugged into a non-GFCI protected receptacle in a bathroom, the installation is not compliant with the NEC. To ensure compliance, the receptacle must be replaced with a GFCI receptacle, or the circuit feeding the receptacle must be protected by a GFCI circuit breaker. GFCI receptacles are readily available at most hardware stores and electrical supply houses. They are designed to be easily installed in place of standard receptacles. GFCI circuit breakers are installed in the electrical panel and provide GFCI protection for the entire circuit. When installing a GFCI receptacle, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The receptacle has two sets of terminals, line and load. The line terminals are connected to the incoming power wires from the circuit breaker, while the load terminals are used to extend GFCI protection to other receptacles downstream on the same circuit. If the receptacle is wired incorrectly, it may not function properly, or it may not provide adequate GFCI protection. It is also important to test the GFCI receptacle after it is installed to ensure that it is working correctly. The receptacle has a test button that, when pressed, should trip the GFCI, interrupting the flow of electricity. If the GFCI does not trip when the test button is pressed, it is not functioning properly and should be replaced. In addition to the NEC requirements, some local jurisdictions may have additional requirements for GFCI protection. It is always a good idea to check with the local building department to determine the specific requirements in your area. It is also important to ensure that shower steamer units are used in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. This includes using the unit only for its intended purpose, keeping it away from water when it is not in use, and unplugging it when it is not in use. Regular inspection of the power cord and plug for any signs of damage is also a good practice. If the cord or plug is damaged, the unit should not be used until it has been repaired by a qualified electrician. In summary, shower steamer units must be protected by a GFCI to prevent electrical shocks. This requirement is mandated by the National Electrical Code and is intended to provide a high level of electrical safety in bathrooms. To ensure compliance, the receptacle that powers the shower steamer unit must be a GFCI receptacle, or the circuit feeding the receptacle must be protected by a GFCI circuit breaker. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for using the shower steamer unit and to regularly inspect the power cord and plug for any signs of damage.